Life has a way of testing us. Sometimes, no matter how hard we try, things don't go our way and it feels unfair. Maybe someone else got the recognition you deserved. Maybe you faced rejection you didn't expect. Or maybe you're just carrying more weight than feels reasonable. In those moments, frustration rises, emotions take over, and calm feels impossible. But the truth is, calm isn't about ignoring the unfairness. It's about handling it in a way that keeps your peace, your strength, and your perspective intact. Recognizing that unfairness is part of life and not a personal attack is one of the hardest but most important shifts we can make in how we see the world. Because the truth is, when something happens that feels unfair, our first instinct is to turn it inward. We think, why me? What did I do wrong? Why does this keep happening to me? And the moment we attach that unfairness to our own identity, it starts to chip away at our confidence, our sense of worth, and even our motivation to keep trying. But unfairness doesn't single us out. It's not a spotlight shining only on our flaws or shortcomings. It's a reality of life that touches every single person in different ways, whether we see it from the outside or not. The person you think has it all together, the one who looks like everything always works out for them, they've faced unfairness too. They've just learned to not personalize it, to not carry it as a burden that defines them. When we look at unfairness as part of the bigger picture, we start to understand that it's not about punishment or some kind of cosmic judgment. It's simply about the unpredictability of life. Things don't always add up in ways that make sense. Hard work doesn't always get rewarded immediately. Kindness doesn't always get returned. And sometimes those who take shortcuts seem to get ahead. If you believe life owes you fairness every single time it doesn't deliver, you'll feel betrayed. But if you see unfairness as something that will inevitably show up, like rain on a day you planned for sunshine, then you can prepare yourself differently. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, how do I want to handle it now that it's here? That shift alone moves you out of the role of victim and into the role of someone who can adapt. It's important to realize that when unfairness shows up, our mind can trick us into thinking it's personal. If a promotion passes you by, if someone mistreats you, if an opportunity doesn't come through, it's natural to think it's because you're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. But the reality is, most of the time, unfairness says more about circumstances, systems, or the choices of others than it does about your value. When you stop making it about you, you free yourself from carrying the weight of every injustice as a reflection of who you are. You can still feel the sting of it, but you don't have to internalize it. Seeing unfairness as universal also helps us connect to others in a different way. If you believe you're the only one facing it, you isolate yourself. You think no one understands, and that isolation makes the burden heavier. But when you accept that everyone at some point has felt the sting of unfairness, you open the door to empathy, to community, and to resilience. You realize that the unfairness you're facing is not proof that you're weak, it's proof that you're human. And the more human we allow ourselves to be, the more strength we actually find in moments like this. This doesn't mean ignoring the pain or brushing it off. It's not about pretending it doesn't matter. It's about refusing to let unfairness write the story of who you are. Because the longer you hold on to the belief that life has singled you out, the more power you give to that belief. When you step back and remind yourself this is part of life, not a punishment, not an identity, you stop carrying that unnecessary load. You may not be able to erase the unfairness, but you can stop it from erasing your peace, your drive, and your hope for what's next. Separating your emotions from your actions is one of the most valuable skills you can develop when dealing with moments that feel unfair, because the natural human response is to let emotions drive the wheel. When we feel wronged, overlooked, or disrespected, our emotions immediately surge to the surface. Anger, frustration, sadness, and even jealousy can show up in seconds. And if we act in that emotional state without pause, we often create more damage than the original unfairness ever caused. Emotions themselves are not the problem. They are signals, reminders that something matters to us. The problem begins when we allow those emotions to dictate our choices and our behavior, especially in situations that already feel unfair. Think about the times you reacted quickly because you were upset. Maybe you sent that text too fast. Maybe you raised your voice in a meeting. Maybe you said something you later regretted. In the moment, it felt justified because unfairness has a way of convincing us that reacting strongly is the only way to prove we've been wronged. But when the dust settles, often what lingers is regret. You start wishing you had handled it differently, that you had taken a breath before acting, that you hadn't let the heat of the moment become the story people remember. Separating emotions from actions doesn't mean suppressing what you feel. It means giving yourself space to feel without immediately turning those feelings into choices. There's power in the pause. That moment when you notice your chest tightening, your jaw clenching, your thoughts racing, that's the moment to remind yourself you are not your reaction. You can acknowledge, I am angry, I am disappointed, I am hurt, without having to let those emotions write the next line of your story. That pause creates clarity. It allows you to see that while you can't control the unfair situation, you can control how you respond to it. That control is what keeps your dignity intact. It's what allows you to hold on to your credibility, even when things are unjust. Another important part of separating emotions from actions is understanding that feelings are temporary, but actions are permanent. The anger you feel today may fade tomorrow. The frustration you carry in this moment may dissolve in a week. But the words you spoke in anger or the choices you made in frustration can live on far longer. They can impact your reputation, your relationships, your opportunities. By creating a boundary between emotion and action, you protect yourself from the long-term consequences of short-term feelings. Sometimes the most powerful response to unfairness is no response at all, at least not in the heat of the moment. Choosing to walk away, choosing silence, choosing to give yourself time to think. That's not weakness, it's strength. It's the strength of knowing that your peace is more valuable than proving a point in anger. It's the strength of recognizing that calm, deliberate actions carry far more weight than impulsive reactions ever will. People may forget the details of the unfair situation, but they will remember how you carried yourself through it. When you begin to separate your emotions from your actions, you also start to see unfairness differently. Instead of viewing it as something that must be fought in the moment, you see it as something that can be handled strategically. You realize that emotions are your internal alarm system, but your actions are your external response. The alarm can go off without you having to smash the glass. You can let yourself feel deeply because feelings are human, but still choose to act wisely because wisdom is what changes outcomes. This practice doesn't come naturally. It takes awareness, repetition, and patience with yourself. You won't always get it right, and there will be moments when emotions still spill over into your actions. But every time you pause, every time you breathe before reacting, every time you let the wave of emotion pass before making a choice, you're building a muscle. That muscle grows into resilience, into calm under pressure, into the kind of presence that others notice and respect. Reframing the situation by focusing on what you can control is one of the most effective ways to protect your peace when life feels unfair. Because unfair moments often leave us staring at the parts we have no influence over. We replay what someone else did. We dwell on how circumstances unfolded. We get caught in the loop of asking why it happened. And all of that energy gets poured into things we cannot change. The more we focus there, the more powerless we feel. And that sense of powerlessness is what makes unfairness cut even deeper. But the moment you shift your attention away from what you cannot control and toward what you can, you begin to take back your sense of agency. You remind yourself that while you don't get to decide everything that happens to you, you do get to decide how you respond, how you carry yourself, and how you move forward from it. It's easy to forget that control is often more about perspective than circumstances. Two people can go through the exact same unfair event and walk away with completely different outcomes because one chose to focus on what they couldn't change while the other focused on what they could. For example, if someone is passed over for a promotion, one person might spend weeks stewing over who got the role instead, how it wasn't deserved, and how leadership overlooked them. Another person might allow themselves to feel the disappointment, but then turn their focus to improving their skills, seeking feedback, or looking for opportunities elsewhere. The situation is equally unfair in both cases, but the difference lies in where the focus went. Reframing isn't about pretending the unfairness didn't happen or minimizing how much it stings. It's about shifting your perspective to recognize that every unfair situation carries two parts, the part you cannot touch and the part you can. The more attention you give to the part you can control, the more strength and stability you build. That control may be small at first. It might simply be controlling your breathing in the moment, choosing not to send that angry message, or deciding to talk it out with someone you trust instead of bottling it up. Over time, those small choices accumulate into a habit of resilience. There's a subtle but powerful difference between asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and asking, "What can I do now that it has happened?" The first question keeps you trapped in the unfairness, circling around it like a storm you can't escape. The second question moves you into action, into clarity, into a place where you have something to build on. That shift in language changes your mindset from powerless to purposeful. Focusing on what you can control also helps protect your emotional energy, because when you obsess over the parts you can't change, you drain yourself without moving forward. It's like pushing against a locked door, exhausting yourself while going nowhere. But when you redirect that same energy toward what you can influence, you create momentum. You start to see progress, even if it's just in your attitude or your sense of calm, and that progress fuels you to keep going. There's also freedom in letting go of control where it doesn't belong. A big part of reframing is admitting some things are simply not yours to fix. People may act unfairly, systems may be biased, circumstances may be stacked against you, and while that reality is frustrating, clinging to the illusion that you should be able to fix it all only multiplies the frustration. When you allow yourself to accept that certain pieces are out of your reach, you stop wasting energy in battles you were never meant to fight. That doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing wisely where to place your effort, and that choice alone makes you stronger. The more you practice reframing in unfair situations, the more it becomes second nature. You start to catch yourself quicker when you're spiraling into thoughts about what you can't change. You notice the moment you slip into blaming, comparing, or replaying, and you redirect yourself towards something you can actually do. Over time, you'll find that unfair situations lose some of their power over you. They still sting, they still matter, but they don't define you because you've built a habit of looking for control where it truly exists. Using calm responses as a strategy to protect your peace and credibility is not about pretending everything is fine or denying how deeply something unfair has affected you. It is about choosing how you want to show up in the moment. When life feels unfair, emotions rise quickly, and the urge to react is almost immediate. But what you say and how you respond in those moments not only determines how others see you, it also determines how much peace you get to keep for yourself. Calm is not silence. Calm is not avoidance. Calm is not weakness. Calm is control. It is the ability to step into an unfair situation and still keep hold of your own voice, your own dignity, and your own clarity. When people treat you unfairly or when circumstances play out in a way that doesn't make sense, most expect you to react. They expect anger, they expect defensiveness, they expect you to lose composure. And when you meet that unfairness with calm instead, you change the entire dynamic. You take away the fuel that feeds conflict, you set a different tone, and you remind yourself and others that you are not ruled by the chaos around you. Calm doesn't erase the unfairness, but it stops the unfairness from deciding the kind of person you become in the moment. Calm responses also protect your credibility because credibility is built in how you handle pressure. Anyone can appear composed when things are going well, but how you carry yourself when things are unfair is what people remember. The colleague who calmly addresses an unfair decision instead of blowing up in the meeting, the friend who calmly states their boundaries instead of retaliating, the person who chooses to pause instead of argue endlessly, those are the people who earn trust and respect even in difficult situations. Others may not always agree with you, they may not even change their unfair behavior, but they will remember the way you carried yourself. Calm is a language that communicates strength without having to shout. Protecting your peace through calm responses is also about refusing to hand over control of your emotions to someone else's actions. When you let unfairness push you into a reaction you regret, you've given away power. You've allowed the unfair moment to decide your behavior. But when you choose calm, you're making a statement that your peace is not up for grabs, that no matter how unfair someone is, you will not let them dictate how you live in that moment. That choice becomes a shield, a way of saying, I will not let your chaos become my chaos. Calm responses require practice because our instincts often tell us to fight back right away. You may feel the urge to raise your voice, to defend yourself with force, or to demand immediate justice. But when you practice calm, you begin to notice that taking a breath before speaking, lowering your tone instead of raising it, or simply pausing before responding doesn't make you weaker. It makes you more effective. The words you choose land better, your presence feels steadier, and you give yourself time to think clearly. Calm responses create space for wisdom to step in where impulsiveness would normally take over. There is also a long-term benefit in consistently responding calmly to unfairness. Over time, it reshapes how others see you. You become known as the person who doesn't get rattled easily, the one who doesn't escalate drama, the one whose words carry weight because they're not rushed out of frustration. That reputation not only protects your credibility, it also gives you influence. People listen more closely when they know you speak from a place of calm rather than reaction. In environments where unfairness is common, being calm becomes a rare and powerful strength. The truth is, calm is a choice you make for yourself as much as it is for others. You may never get the apology you deserve. You may never see the fairness you hoped for, but you can choose not to let the unfairness take your peace away. Calm becomes your strategy, your defense, your way of saying, I will not let this moment decide my identity. It allows you to walk away with your head high, knowing that you chose strength over chaos, clarity over confusion, and peace over reaction. Turning unfair moments into growth by choosing strength over reaction is one of the most powerful ways to transform what could break you into something that builds you. Life is never short on opportunities to feel wronged, overlooked, or mistreated. People will disappoint you, systems will fail you, and circumstances will push you into places that feel undeserved. In those moments, it's easy to slip into bitterness or resentment, to believe that the unfairness has taken something from you that you'll never get back. But when you begin to see unfairness as an invitation to grow rather than just an obstacle to endure, you take back control of the story. Growth in these moments doesn't happen automatically. It happens by choosing strength instead of reaction, by deciding that even if the situation isn't fair, the way you handle it will still move you forward. Choosing strength means deciding that you will not let the situation shrink you. Reaction is instinctive, it's quick, it's emotional, and often it feels satisfying in the moment. But reaction is short lived, and more often than not, it adds weight to the burden instead of lifting it. Strength, on the other hand, is about holding steady, about pausing long enough to see what the moment can teach you, about making choices that align with the person you want to become rather than the emotions you're feeling in the heat of the moment. Every unfair experience carries with it the possibility of growth, but only if you choose to engage with it that way. There is growth in learning patience when you want to demand results right away. There is growth in practicing humility when your pride is hurt. There is growth in finding your voice when it would be easier to stay silent. And there is growth in holding your peace when it would be easier to lash out. Each unfair situation presents you with a fork in the road. One path is reaction, where you give in to anger, frustration, or bitterness, and the other path is strength, where you choose a response that lifts you instead of pulls you down. The path of strength is harder, but it's also the path that expands who you are. Growth also happens when you start to use unfairness as feedback instead of finality. It doesn't mean you deserved what happened, but it does mean you can look at the situation and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to build resilience? What part of me can get stronger here? Maybe an unfair outcome shows you that you need to prepare differently next time. Maybe it highlights the importance of setting stronger boundaries, or maybe it teaches you the value of patience and persistence. Even in moments where the unfairness was completely out of your hands, you can still choose to let it strengthen your ability to endure. One of the most overlooked forms of growth that comes from unfair moments is self-respect. When you choose strength over reaction, you show yourself that you are capable of more than just lashing out or shutting down. You show yourself that you can handle pain without letting it poison you. You build trust with yourself, and that trust becomes the foundation for confidence moving forward. You begin to see yourself not as someone life pushes around, but as someone who can stand firm even when life pushes hard. That shift in self-perception changes everything, because confidence built in the fire of unfairness is the kind of confidence that cannot be easily shaken. There is also growth in recognizing that strength doesn't always mean fighting back. Sometimes strength is walking away without losing your peace. Sometimes strength is refusing to hold on to bitterness. Sometimes strength is forgiving when it makes no sense to forgive. In each of those choices, you are building a deeper kind of power, the kind that doesn't rely on external fairness, but on internal stability. That kind of growth stays with you long after the unfair situation has passed, and it equips you to handle whatever comes next with a stronger, steadier foundation. The more you practice turning unfair moments into growth, the more you begin to see them as opportunities rather than only obstacles. You may not welcome them, but you no longer fear them. You recognize that while you can't control life being unfair, you can always control whether you shrink or strengthen through it. And every time you choose strength over reaction, you are adding another layer to your resilience, another layer to your wisdom, another layer to your character. Over time, those layers create a version of you that is unshakable, a version that can face life's unfairness without losing yourself in the process.